In the spring of 2015, Joanne and I took Holland America's 3-day bus trip across the Yukon Territory. After a day in Dawson, Holland America flew us to Fairbanks, Alaska. Getting off the White Pass Railroad train in Fraser, we took a bus ride into the Yukon Territory and the town of Carcross. This part of the trip afforded us some of the most rugged scenery in the Yukon, but sadly I didn't take many pictures and the bus didn't stop much.
This is Emerald Lake in the Yukon, and aren't we lucky to be here today?
Here's Carcross, the fourth largest city in the Yukon Territory. Yep, the fourth largest city, and this is its main business district. We're told there's permafrost under here, so they don't dig wells, they have water trucked in. And this is as far as the White Pass Railroad goes. It used to go as far as Whitehorse, but no longer. Through government funding, no doubt, Carcross has been enabled to introduce tourists to the First Nation culture with exhibits and performances. After Carcross, it was not a long bus ride to Whitehorse, where we arrived in the early afternoon. Now we're in downtown Whitehorse, and we're looking for the offices of the Northwest Mounted Police so we can find Sergeant Presta. An old acquaintance of mine, dating back to the 1950s. Here's a local curiosity. Klondike Yukon license plate. We've got a Northwest Territory somewhere in the archives. Whitehorse is quite a bustling little cosmopolitan town. Notice Whitehorse is large enough to have its own bus system, something Jamestown doesn't have. And over here is the mighty Yukon, a river I never thought I would see necessarily. Here's the SS Klondike. Nothing that says Yukon River like this riverboat has got Yukon River written all over it. Where else would you find it? There it is. It's a paddle wheeler. We were told it was made in 1933. I wish it had been earlier than that. But it looks pretty authentic. Too bad it isn't floating. Here are the pimsol markings, if that's what you call them, and shows that it doesn't draw much water. It's 6 feet. There's the top number. It's shallow draft. I thought paddle wheels were supposed to be red. Oh well, we're in Canada. It would have taken a steamboat like this 2 to 5 weeks to beat its way upstream from Dawson to Whitehorse. Just look at the strength of this current. But only about 5 days to return downstream. There's the city hall. And there's the White Horse.
Yeah.
But the name refers to
the white of the water. The white caps. Yes. Just ask some people in England.
It takes the better part of a day to drive from Whitehorse to Dawson on the North Klondike Highway. Some of it paved, some of it dusty, but all of it fairly passable. Just can't wait to get on the road again. Well, I might love those music for my friend, and I can't wait to get on the road again. Our driver kept us well entertained with his music tapes and chatter along the way. Here, we're leaving Whitehorse.
The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. The northern lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake Lebarge that I cremated Sam McGee.
We had a beautiful day for crossing the Yukon. Sunny, clear, warm. The Yukon is beautiful, but I think some of the time it must look like this. And most of the year, I'm sure, it looks like this.
You talk of your cold through the parka's fold that stabbed like a driven nail. If our eyes we'd close and the lashes froze, till sometimes we couldn't see.
We stopped for lunch near the famous Five-Fingered Rapids. Fred Dewey needed all his boating skills to survive this hazard. Many foundered. Steamboats bound upriver were sketched past these rocks. Here we're having lunch on the banks of the Yukon River at a stop called Ninto Resort, run by the First Nation of Shoshones. Seems like a notable experience. A storied river, a historic river, a notable river, the Yukon. And inside serving are tour guide Megan and bus driver Jake. We were the first ones here, but now an entire caravan of these buses, I guess most of them Holland American buses, have arrived, and the tourists are lined up waiting for their turn at the cafeteria-style lunch. This highway, too, is well traveled by buses and RVs, especially when you consider the remoteness of the location. As we approached Dawson City that afternoon, we were afforded a view of the Tintina Trench, a fault line that slashes diagonally across the Yukon Territory and Alaska. We got some altitude here. Must have been on a plateau. Seems to be a long way down.
Alrighty, welcome to Tintina Trench. I'm just gonna be here for about 5 minutes or so, enough to take a picture and stretch your leg.
This is called the Tintina Trench. It's a fault line, straight valley, shifted a couple of rivers over their banks.
Goes on for a while around here.
And created a corridor for wildlife and created deposits of ore. We're a few miles yet from Dawson. Take us a while to get there yet. By late afternoon, we had arrived in Dawson City. We approached Dawson City along Highway 2, which, by the way, is also known as the Top of the World Highway, which runs parallel to the Klondike River. Dawson City is sited at the confluence of the Yukon and the Klondike Rivers on the alluvial outwash from the Klondike. Here's looking upstream or south along the Yukon.
Well, we've arrived in Dawson City, the land of the gold.
And the Tourons are arriving. These aren't our Tourons, but the bus is identical to ours. Here's the Westmark Inn in Dawson, the block on the south side, conforming to a Chautauqua-like prescribed color scheme, I'm sure, to fit the atmosphere, and also fitting the atmosphere are these wooden sidewalks and dirt roads. I expect they find it charming. I find it, however, dusty. Dawson City is self-consciously historic. Some of it's authentic, but most of it probably not. More about Dawson City will have to await treatment in another movie. Here's a wreck of a building. Might have been here in Fred Dewey's day. It's hard to tell. It's not in good shape at all. We don't know anything about it, except that it's condemned.